So like I said, we're going to go ahead and jump on in here. So this is my personal website. This is my professional art website. I've had a number of different variations on my website over the years. More recently, I actually started using Square, the other company, other than like PayPal, right? I started using their website, and I went through and actually edited some of the code so that I could get my website to function and form the way that I wanted it to. So I kind of started with one of their templates, and then I broke it down. I, for many, many years, have coded just straight code, not using Dreamweaver, like literally opening a notepad document and just typing out code. Back in the day, that was kind of the only way to get a website to work. But more recently, I wanted to get into selling my artwork, and the honest truth is, I could sit down and work on coding my own e-commerce kind of website. But honestly, I don't even want to begin to get into that kind of world. So I just started using this template so that I could go online and kind of sell my artwork through their actual company. It makes things way, way easier, and so that's what I'm doing. But there's definitely a look to more contemporary websites, right? And you guys have been online more than enough that, for example, if I told you right now, I'm not going to scroll the mouse at all, right? I'm not going to scroll the mouse at all. I need to navigate this website. Where am I going? Say again? What? Okay, what is the menu button? Yeah, totally, right? We just kind of know instinctually this right here is the menu, right? It's these little tiny lines that say, hey, there's something more hanging out here, right? But understand, this symbol, really up until kind of app design, this symbol didn't really exist. I distinctly remember the first time that I went to a website and I was lost. I didn't know what to do. But over time, when every single website starts to do this, you understand like, oh, that means there's more information hanging out here on the side. That came about because as tastes have changed, as designs have changed, we wanted more of a clean interface. We also want something that's more adaptive. So for example, this website right now, if I shrink it down, this is about what it would look like on, say, your cell phone. Notice how the images automatically kind of cascade, they move, they mutate, they kind of shift around a little bit, right? And as I start to expand my web screen here, my window, right, automatically they shift into a new mode, right? This website is adaptive. It will automatically adapt to whether or not I am sitting on a computer screen, or if I'm sitting on an iPad or something, a tablet, or if I'm sitting on a cell phone, right? So depending on the size of the screen. Now, there are other websites I'm sure you guys have gone to before that have a mobile version of the site and a desktop version of the site. And they are two completely separate, different websites. To you, whenever you're interfacing with it, whenever you're interacting with the website might feel like the exact same. And I click on a button, it switches from desktop to mobile. But they are two completely separate, different websites. And you are literally jumping between two separate websites. The way they're coded, everything is very, very separate. This website that you're looking at right now is an adaptive website. So as the screen shrinks down to something smaller, it will change and shift in order to adapt to the scale of the website, right? So it's kind of two different schools of thought, two different ways to go. So do me a favor, you guys are online right now. Go ahead and just pull up any website that you regular. If there's a news site you go to, or like maybe you really like some sports or tech facts, whatever you're into, just go to any website that you normally visit. When you get there, right, I want you to shrink the screen, shrink the actual window as small as it will go. Right, grab that corner and shrink it down. And notice, ask yourself, whenever you're shrinking that screen down, is this website adaptive, right? Or am I just literally like shrinking the window? Is just my little portal to this window becoming smaller and I have smaller space? Or is the website actually mutating? Is it shifting and bending to fit the scale of this web page, right? So that's going to give you a little insight onto what a more adaptive website might be. Again, it's a little more updated, it's a little more nuanced, but it's been around for a number of years at this point. This is not like a totally brand new concept. A lot of websites that are a little bit heavier duty may not be adaptive because maybe they have an app. And so they're going to encourage you, hey, if you're on your cell phone, we actually don't want you to surf on this website. We'd prefer if you download the app. So that's kind of a good way. If you have an app and you want someone to use it, maybe don't make a very useful website, something that adapts to the screen. Instead, kind of force your audience to switch over to your app where you have a whole lot more control over it. So, okay. So first up, I want you to understand just what makes an actual website. So you're on your website right now. If you have the right mouse turned on, if you have the right click turned on, I want you to go ahead and right click on your, directly in the website. And if you're using Chrome, you should see one here that says View Page Source, or something along those lines. Something that says View Page Source. If you see that, go ahead and click on it. If not, what's that?
Do you have to be in Chrome?
In Chrome, it's here. Safari, where is it? I don't have Safari on this computer. Safari, I want to say it's tucked up in one of your drop-down windows, but I don't know offhand. But we can still do it. But either way, I'm just kind of show you. What will end up happening if you do view source, it will show you all of the code for the entire website. So when you look at a website, this is what a website actually looks like, right? It is a whole bunch of code. It looks like something right out of the Matrix. I mean, it's just one long, lengthy line of code, all jumbled up. Now, what's cool is this. This code is a language, right? We call this language HTML, all right? You might have had a web design class at some point in the past or something. HTML is very much a basic coding language. It stands for Hypertext Markup Language. Hypertext Markup Language. Hypertext is just a fancy way of saying there are links. That's it. When I click on a link, it takes me to a new page. That's all it does. So I've got this Hypertext Markup Language. Markup basically meaning that the text that I'm typing is a shortened version of the actual code. So this is not binary code. I'm not typing ones and zeros. I have a shortened, kind of shrunk down version of my, my code here. Now what's cool is this. Theoretically, right? Theoretically, I could copy this code. If I had all of the elements, if I had all the pictures and everything else, I could copy this code. I could take it into, say, Dreamweaver or whatever app that I'm using to code. I could take it in, and I'd be able to start to edit and manipulate this website, which means that any website that I have access to their code, I'd start to be able to edit and manipulate it. Way, way back in the day when I was younger and had hair, this is how I learned to code. There weren't classes on web design. I literally would find the code, copy it to my computer, and start editing it and see what disappeared, right? So if I were to go ahead and cut out this line of code right here, right? Well, what breaks, right? What changes? And I just went through and did that time and time and time and time again until eventually I started understanding what this language meant. And really, if any of you know another language, say you know Spanish or something else, French maybe, if you know another language, that's kind of how language works as well, right? You learn a handful of words at a time. If you're using, Duolingo or something, right? You learn a handful of words at a time. You start to use them conversationally. Then you start to learn more new ones. You learn new words, new coding languages. So whether it's Spanish or whether it's HTML, at the end of the day, this is a language, right? So just like when you're learning Spanish, don't expect to learn the entire language overnight. You're going to learn a couple keywords that'll get you through a basic conversation, right? So what we're going to do is this. We're going to go ahead and learn some of these basic codes very, very quickly. I'm just going to give you some of the quick little overviews. We're just going to be using HTML today. We are not going to get into DHTML or CSS or any other languages that go much deeper down the rabbit hole. So do me a favor real quick if you would. Go ahead and crack open. We're going to use Adobe Dreamweaver today. It's kind of a lime green little box. Has D and W on it. Now my screen is going to look a little bit different than yours, just because mine's being compressed with the projector on here. But the overall impression here is still going to be the same. So you've got your main little pop-up window here. If yours is opening for the very first time, it's going to ask you a couple quick little questions. If you want more of a like a dark mode or what kind of interface you want. It also might ask if you want a dashboard view or kind of a standard view. For the sake of argument, go ahead and use that developer view. We're going to jump directly into the actual code itself. Once you've done that, go ahead and skip on through. Just kind of jump through those little pop-up windows. And it's going to take you to a nice big old blank screen. Whenever you get there, you can do File New, like you could for anything else in Adobe. I'm going to go ahead and do create a new document here. And make sure whenever you File New that you're creating a new document type that is HTML. We do not want CSS or JavaScript or any of these other guys. They're a little bit different for what we want. We're sticking with HTML. Don't worry about titling it or anything else like that, because we're going to be deleting these soon. Now, depending on how yours looks, when you first open it up, oh, sure. So are you online? Okay, so you're signed in. Are you signed into your Adobe plan? That'll get you. So when you're all signed in, everything's good. Your screen is going to look like one of two things. Either it will look like this, where you got kind of a big white block at the top, or it will look like this, where it's just one big black window with some weird highlighted words inside. This is what we want to go for. This is a straight just developer coding window. The split view here will actually show us what is happening when we're typing it, kind of a live view. But we're going to stick with code for right now just because we're learning the bare bones basics. Just out of curiosity, how many guys in the room have ever done any kind of web coding, HTML, anything like that? Okay, good, excellent. So for you guys who have, this will be a little bit basic for you. We're just going to go over the super bare bones basics. I just want to give you a taste of what this stuff can do. So a couple quick things. Every single website that you've ever gone to in your life, the actual code here will always begin and end with HTML, right? Now, if I'm using a different language, if I'm going to use CSS or some other web coding language, then I would input that coding language inside a different little bracket there. But you can see how everything in between here, from the open tab, where it's just these little carets, HTML, to the closed, open carets with this little slash. That just means closed, right? That little slash means closed. So everything in between here is an HTML document, right? So I'm telling the computer what language I'm typing in, right? So again, imagine if instead of computer languages, imagine if I went to a classroom. And right before I walked in that classroom, if I said to you, hey everyone, we're only speaking in Spanish from here on out, then it wouldn't seem nearly as weird whenever I start speaking in Spanish, right? Kind of giving you a heads up. So that's basically what we're doing. We're just telling the computer, hey, we are talking in HTML, right? Or I could switch that to some other language and tell the computer. The next section here you see is the word head, right? H-E-A-D. You'll notice that this one's open, and then this one here is closed. Again, closed is this little backslash inside those little carets. Anytime you see these little carets, that's this little open and closed, greater than, less than sign there. That's just telling you that it's a piece of code. That's all it means. Those little carets tell it's a piece of code. If it's not in those little carets, right, then it's just plain old text, okay? So inside the head is where I would put any kind of extra coding data. So let's say every time I wanted to load this website, I want to make sure that every piece of text across the entire body of the website, I want that text to be lime green. I could put that in here, and instead of having to change each line of code or each line of text, I could just make it ubiquitous across the entire web page, right? So anything that I wanted to kind of add or change the website that I don't necessarily want anyone to see, I can put inside the header, okay? Then finally we've got the body, right? And the body is exactly what we think it is. We've got open body and closed body. So the body is what you see on the actual website. So we're just going to play around here real quick. We're going to make our very first web page. It's going to be gross and weird, but we're going to have fun anyway. So go ahead and hit enter real quick so we can get inside of the body. We're going to do a couple things. First up here where it says untitled document, unless you named yours, but where it says untitled document, go ahead and change that to, we're just going to call this test 01. Test 01. Plain, boring, test 01. Inside the body, go ahead and type whatever the heck you want to type. Just one plain old sentence, very, very boring. Yes? One plain old little sentence there. Anything you want to type. I'm going to write, Mr. Kozak is clearly the greatest teacher ever. Obviously. Okay. So I like to only type in facts personally, so you can write whatever you want, but I only write facts. So just type a plain old sentence. Now, as you're typing, right, inside the body, you'll notice that your text is coming up white, right? That's showing you a difference because the code would come up as like this kind of pale blue, and any other changes that we're going to make are going to come up as different colors. So anything that you have, any text on here that is white, tells you it will literally display on your website. Okay. So I know we haven't really done anything yet, but what I want to do is this: go up to File, Save As. We're going to come right back to this in a second. But just go ahead and do File, Save As. We're going to save this. We'll just call it test01.html. We'll leave everything else exactly the same. You can just save it directly to your desktop. That's fine. And hit Save. Now, we could check out the live view, right? We could absolutely check out the live view. But for right now, I kind of find it more fun to like see it actually in the internet. So go ahead and minimize that down. You'll see your test01 file is sitting there. Just double click on it. It will automatically open up in your web browser, and you made your first website. That just happened. This is not necessarily live on the internet, but you just opened a web page on the internet, right? Now, it's not anything that anyone would ever want to visit, right? But you are in control of this. You just did that, right? You made that happen, right? So what we're going to do is this. We're going to go ahead and we're going to start playing around with this a little bit. And again, this is kind of a step-by-step demo, so this is more to get you kind of a taste in this. If you do have interest in web design, we can talk much more about it in the future. So let's go back to Dreamweaver real quick. Let's start making some changes. I want you to find one word in your little sentence here that you made. I'm going to do the word greatest, right? That's what I want. So what I want to do is this. I want to change this. If I was in Microsoft Word, maybe I want to emphasize something. I'm going to hit, I want to make this bold. Right? I really want to make this bold and powerful. So let me ask you this. Again, you guys haven't learned this yet, so you can't be wrong. We're just kind of playing around, right? If you already know the answer, then don't answer yet. Give everyone a chance. If I wanted to make the word greatest bold, what code would I type? Right there. Go with the obvious, don't worry. So I could totally type the word bold, right? That would be really obvious. But in the world of code, right, in the world of markup languages, we want to take that word, bold, and we want to crunch it down to its basic language so that I can tell the computer what I want it to do without having to type out a whole paragraph, right? So if I want to make the word greatest bold, all I would do is open caret. It's down by your space bar on the right-hand side. I'm going to type the letter B for bold. I'm going to do close caret, right? Now you'll notice when I did that, in Dreamweaver, it automatically makes a closed caret, or a closed bold right there, that little backslash. So in order to make the word greatest bold, I actually have to put the word greatest inside this little bracket here. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it. I'm going to paste it right inside of there. So you'll notice that the open B and the closed B are surrounding the word that I want to be bold, right? Open B and closed B are surrounding that word. Go ahead and do that for me. B and then close caret. Yeah, and then make that word inside that bracket. Okay. Yep. So little open caret, the letter B, little closed caret, right? When you've done that, do File, Save, and then go back to the internet. Refresh your page. You just changed it. Did you change it? Did it work? Right? Again, this kind of gives you, this is really basic, right? But this kind of gives you an idea of the power that you have. When you're adding code, you are changing this web page. You are changing it, right? You have complete control over this. Let's go back to Dreamweaver real quick. Pick a different word. This time, whatever word you want, I want you to make it italic. And I'm not telling you the code for italic. Figure it out. I bet you can. It's really easy. You know what the code for bold is. What possibly could the code for italic be? Remember, open caret, whatever you think the code is, and then close caret. Give it a try. If it works, hit save, refresh your web page, see if it worked. Right? Sometimes the most fun about like coding of any languages, not just web languages, but the most fun comes from kind of figuring stuff out on your own, right? Going through and testing it and refreshing that web page and seeing the thing that you want come alive, right? Give it a try. Did it work for anybody? Yeah, kind of? All right, so again, we've got this idea. Oops. See, I mistyped. Right, so I've got open I, the letter I, in between this little carets, and closed I. That little backslash just closes it. When you're typing code, you have to close your code. You have to open it and close it, right? Think back, this is a kind of a lame example, but it's the best one I have. Think back to whenever you were in like 4th grade. When you were in 4th grade, you had some English teacher at some point think that they were so cute and fun, and they had you write some English paper that was like a step-by-step paper. Did you ever do one of those things, right? You know, like, I'm going to teach the class to tie a shoe, and you have to do like, step 1, pick up the shoe. Step 2, pick up the lace, like step by step. And of course, everyone starts laughing whenever like you mess something up, right? You know, and it's always something really, really basic, right? So it'd be like, you know, I'm going to teach you all to drink a bottle of water. So you raise the bottle to your mouth. And then, of course, everyone laughs because you don't have a bottle. You have to pick it up and har, right? But this is how computers work. You have to tell them every single step. If you've ever, in your life, yelled some horrible obscenity at a computer because it's breaking and it's not doing the thing you want it to do, remember, and I mean this in all honesty, computers don't hate us. They don't do anything we don't tell them to do. The Terminator does not exist. There's no computer that is out to get you, right? There's no computer that's out to get you. Instead, it is always user error. Did we tell it to do something that it didn't know how to do, right? If I said to you, I'm going to teach you to turn off the AC unit in this room. Step 1, turn it off. You're going to say, turn what off? I know what you want, right? Instead, I have to say, walk to the AC unit. Okay, I can do that. All right. Locate the power button. Yep, I see it. Press the power button. You have successfully turned off the AC, right? Done. But I needed 3 steps to make that happen. I'm going to turn it back on because it's really warm in here. Right? But I needed those 3 steps. Coding is the exact same way, right? I need to tell it every single step. If I didn't have a closed tab, if I didn't have a closed italic on that, if I just had an open one, then my entire paragraph would be italic because the computer wouldn't know when to stop. It would just say, oh, you want me to italicize everything? Gotcha, right? It's like a dog with a bone. It just is here to please and make you happy, but it doesn't really know what you want it to do. So just for hoops and giggles, let's give it one more try. Pick another word. This time around, I want you to underline that word. I'm going to let you guess what you think the tag is, what you think the code is for underline. Okay. Okay. So it's the letter I. Yep. Here. Yep. I. And then close here. Yeah, it's just a single letter. So we've got one word that's bold, one word that's italic, and one word that's underlined. Okay. When you're done, go ahead and save. A quick, easy way, instead of going up to File, Save, is just do the keyboard shortcut right there, the hotkey. You can do Command S. That'll do an automatic quick save for you. Jump back to the internet and hit refresh. Look at that. I got italic, I got bold, and I got underline. Nice and easy, right? So let's do one more thing. Again, if you have interest in web design, this is super bare bones basic stuff, and this class is graphic design, not web design. I would love to teach you more, but I don't want to take up too much of our time because I want to jump into UX and UI today as well. If you have more interest, I definitely want to make sure that you have that access. So if you want more, I've got other videos on YouTube that can totally help teach you some of the basics. But I would be amiss if I didn't teach you how to make a web site. Right now we have a web page. It is a single page with text or a picture or something on it, right? But to make a website, I have to connect 2 separate individual pages. When you surf the internet and you click on a link, it is taking you to a completely different web page. It might look the same, but it is a completely different web page. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So we've already got this one saved, right? Let's do this real quick. Let's do, we're going to go ahead. I know this is goofy, but just go with me for a second. I want you to delete your text real quick. I want you to type a different sentence, whatever the heck you want. Okay. Once you've done that, we're going to do File, but instead of Save, do Save As. And we're going to go ahead and rename this from Test01 to Test02. Hit Save, and away it goes. Feel free to change the title up here as well. So you now have two separate web pages on your desktop. You have Test01 and Test02. Go ahead at the end of your sentence on Test 01, hit Enter. What we're going to do is this. We're going to make our very first hyperlink. And a hyperlink is, well, it's a link. It's anytime you've gone on a web page and you've clicked a link. That, in the world of code, we call that a hyperlink. So, do open caret, the letter A as in apple, and a space. Okay? So that code, what we just did, the A is symbolic of the word anchor. It is an anchor in your web page. It's like putting a little nail right in your web page and saying, I'm going to do something right here. After that, in the same code line, and the same tag there, I want you to type the letters H, R, E, F. href. Right? This is, again, symbolic. It stands for a hyperlink reference. So this is telling me where I'm supposed to go. Okay? I want you to type the equal sign. It's up by your delete key. I want you to type a quote, little quote line there. And then I want you to type our very first web page, which in this case was called Test 01, and then the file itself was .html. And then outside that last little quote there, do end caret. So just to repeat, right? Open caret, the letter A is in apple, href, H-R-E-F, equals, quote, test01.html, quote, close caret. The second you close that caret, if you've done it right, it should automatically come up with a closed letter A, right? So here's how this works. I just told the computer I have an anchor point, so something is happening. I have a reference, so I'm referencing another item. And then the item that I'm referencing is that test01, right? So all I'm telling the computer is, when I click on something, I want you to take me to test01. That's what I just told it to do. Now, what that link is, or what it says, has to go inside of these letter A's. So go ahead and type a single word, whatever you want. I have the maturity of a 3-year-old. So in this case, in my code, right, in mine, it is going to appear with the word poop. Poop is going to have a link. It's going to be underlined, and I can click on poop, and it will take me to test01, right? So when you're done with this, go ahead and just save. So we have two websites, test01, test02, test01, test02. Go ahead and minimize Dreamweaver. Go ahead and open up test02. Let's open that file. Right? So mine says, or maybe not, Mr. Kosick is not the greatest. I click on the word poop, and it takes me automatically to test01. You've just interconnected two completely separate websites or web pages to make your very first website. Now, this is not a good website. No one is visiting this. Your numbers are so low, you have 0 followers. But understand, every website you've gone to in your life, this, what we just did, is the basic premise. That's all it is. When you click on a link, it takes you to a different web page. That's it. A website is just hundreds and hundreds of web pages, right? And these hyperlinks are just jumping you from page 1 to page 7, from page 7 to page 15, and then back to 1 again. That's all a website is, right? Now, obviously, there's pictures. We want to take into account the actual design. But nowadays, I don't want to think so much about designing a web page. Instead, I want to start thinking about designing something very different. I want to start thinking about how I'm going to design an app, right? So think for a second here about what UX and UI design really are, right? When I'm designing something, right? When I'm going through and thinking about the user experience, right? I want to go through and think about, first I'm going to do a little bit of user research, right? I'm going to figure out who is my audience, right? If I'm going to make an app for teenagers, I need to know what teenagers are into. If I'm making an app for the elderly, I want to know what are the elderly into. So I want to do my research. Next, I'm going to do a little bit of analysis. I'm going to look out there. What else is out there? Do I have other competing companies? Do I have any other apps out there that are kind of already doing what I'm doing? Why is my app going to be different and better? Next, I want to think about the design process, right? So how is my app going to flow? How is it going to move around? I want to test that app. I want to prototype it, and I want to keep designing, redesigning until it's as smooth as it possibly can be. Nowadays, we've got a UI designer and a UX designer, right? So we want to think about, okay, well, what are the differences? Am I more of a UX kind of person, or am I more of a UI person, right? So a UI designer, right? A UI designer is more on the artistic side. They're more of the graphic designer type, right? I'm going to come up with the visuals. I might prototype it. I'm not really worried about the finished overall design. I don't really care about doing any kind of research. I just want to make it look pretty, right? I'm more on the actual interface. What does the literal interface look like? What is the HUD, the heads-up display? What do the things actually look like? The user experience, the UX designer, is someone who's going to go through and they're going to say, okay, I don't really care that it looks pretty. I got to make sure it works, right? I can paint, walls on a broken building all day long, but it's still a broken building, right? So they are making sure that everything is as structurally integral, as construction and foundation is built as solidly as humanly possible, right? So think to yourself, are you more of a UI or are you more of a UX designer, right? And then, like I said, think about, how is this going to go through? Well, is this going to be something that's viewed in an iPad, on a desktop app? Is it something that's only on the the telephone, right? Is it something that's only on my cell phone? I love my my Instagram app, but man, the trying to get that thing on my iPad is just atrocious. It is hideous looking. It is meant only to be on my cell phone because that's how they want you to use it. They want you to have this cell phone with your camera ready so you can add new pictures to Instagram. They don't really want you taking pictures on your iPad. They don't really want you using it on the desktop. They want it on your phone. So that's how they've designed it, right? So think about the overall kind of responsibilities here, right? So this is just another website, but the UX designer, right? What are they actually working on? Well, their big thing here, you can tell, they're coming up with the wireframe. They're making sure that the actual design, the actual structural, underpinnings of this overall app are functional, that everything links, right? You've all been to a website before where you click on a link and it takes you to the wrong page, or the website crashes, or just doesn't work, right? That's the UX designer. Are all the links good? Is everything flowing? Does everything work well? Do all my analytics, equate? Are they all coming out okay? The UI designer, right? The look and feel. If this is going to be an app that I want, grandparents to use, well, what colors would work well with that, right? They probably don't want like neon pink. That doesn't really seem like a grandparent color, right? Doesn't mean that grandma can't like, neon pink, but I'm going to guess she's going to be a little turned off and not really want to be using this app, right? So I'm going to take into account my audience. I want to know more about, how active are my animations, right? What is this app going to actually look like, right? And then finally, learning more about web design, please feel free to talk to me. I'm more than happy to give you more info. Go ahead then and crack open. We want Adobe Xd, this kind of neon pink looking one, Adobe Xd. Okay. So again, mine's a little bit different than yours just because of the screen resolution. But what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and start things up. Go ahead and jump on in. We're just going to do File, New. Oh, mine's not going to let me do it. Come on. I don't want a tutorial. There we go. Okay. So, sorry. So yours has these little options here ready for you to go. Just like if you're using Adobe InDesign, just like if you're using Photoshop, it wants you to tell it what size canvas or what size artboard you're working with. In our case, let's just go ahead and jump in. We're going to pretend that we're designing an app for an iPhone X. So go ahead and grab the iPhone X template, and it will go ahead and pull you into the program. So whenever you get here, it should automatically feel to you like a really, really simplified version of Illustrator. We've got a very small amount of tools off on the left-hand side. We have a very small amount of information here on the right-hand side, but for the most part, it's still basically Illustrator, right? I've got my canvas right here, my artboard. It's just happened to be the size of an iPhone, right? I've got my little objects over here, so if I want to make a square, if I want to make a circle, if I want to make a triangle, and they work exactly the same way that they do in Illustrator. I come over to my canvas, I start drawing it out. If I want it to be perfect, if I needed a perfect circle, what key do I press? Totally. Press Shift, get a nice perfect circle. Go ahead and pick one of the three shapes and make a perfect version of it on your screen. Any size that you want to. Just make sure that it is perfectly sized. Okay. Once you've done that, I want you to go ahead and we're going to make sure that that circle is selected. We want to go ahead and change the overall color of that object. On the right-hand side, again, mine's a little bit off, but on the right-hand side, you'll see down here in Appearance, right, we have Fill and Border. And again, just like in Adobe Illustrator, our fill color is going to be the color on the inside. Go ahead and change it to whatever color you want. Right, working out just fine. Go ahead and make a new shape. Pick one that you didn't pick the first time. This time, make it imperfect. Do something slightly different. And go ahead and fill in that with a different color as well. So you have a slightly different shape. And again, very, very similar to Adobe Illustrator. This shouldn't feel any bit foreign to you, one tiny bit here. This should feel very, very normal. You'll notice that as I'm moving my object around, I'm getting all these weird little like pop-up lines, light blue and pink and all these little tiny things. They are telling me where my shape is that I have a hold of in relationship to other objects. So you want to think about whether you're using Adobe Illustrator or whether you're using Xd or really any kind of design, designing on a grid, making sure that things are aligned, neat, and tidy, right? So if I have these two objects and they're kind of askew, right, or even worse like that, that doesn't look good. Right? My object is kind of floating here. It's not really aligned well. But if I go ahead and kind of line it up, that just flows a little bit nicer. It's a little bit more neat. It's a little bit more tidy. So make sure that your objects, whenever you're using these things, are nice and kind of organized, well put together. That second shape that you made, go ahead and select that guy. Go ahead and change his border color, the stroke. Change that to whatever color you want to. And then go ahead and increase the size of the stroke. You'll notice right underneath the word border, there's the word size. I can click in there. I can type a new number, or I just click and use my arrow keys to go bigger, 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 and bigger. So now I've got two shapes, one with a little bit thicker stroke on the outside. Everything works exactly the same as in Illustrator, so go ahead and take one of those shapes and rotate it to the side, just to show that you know how to do that. Just like with Illustrator, just go slightly outside of my selection. That gives me my little rotate icon, and that lets me rotate it around. Now, nowadays, as you saw, some of those illustrations nowadays, whenever you go to websites or you're using apps, a lot of illustrations have kind of nice rounded corners. It's just kind of the style currently. I can do that pretty easily. So if you have a shape with corners on it, in this case my triangle, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in so you can see. Whenever I have my triangle selected, or a square does this as well, you'll see that there's this kind of little circle on the inside of my selection. This little circle right here on the inside. If you have a square, it's in each corner. Go ahead and click on that and kind of drag slightly to the left, and you'll slowly be able to kind of round out those edges. Make it a little bit more, maybe a little more engaging, a little softer, right? Overlap those two shapes. Any way you want to, doesn't really matter. Now, just like with Adobe Illustrator, if I wanted for some reason to push this back, I could always right click, and right there's my arrange icons, right? So bring to front, bring forward, send backwards, send to back. So if I want it all the way back, I'm going to do send to back, and now it's underneath, right? So all this stuff, you already know this stuff from Illustrator. It should feel very, very basic, very normal to you, very comfortable. Speaking of Adobe Illustrator, the thing that gave you nightmares before, the pen tool, it's back with a vengeance. The pen tool in Adobe Xd works exactly the same as it does in Illustrator. Exactly the same. So if I want nice, clean, straight lines, if I want bendy lines, if I want bendy lines that break in a different direction, everything works exactly the same way. The only difference from Adobe Illustrator is, notice that I don't really have that selection and direct selection tool. Instead, I can just click directly on a node and adjust it without having to switch between that black arrow and that white arrow. I can just grab it and go. If I wanted to add a new node, if I wanted to add a new anchor point, I just grab my pen tool and click somewhere on my, my object, right? So you'll see here, right? Oop, that's starting a new one, sorry. Try again. Whenever I'm in this edit mode, I just double clicked, I can add a new anchor point, and I can adjust that new anchor point, right? So it's very, very user-friendly. It's personally, I like this way more than I like Adobe Illustrator's pen tool. I think it's much more fluid. I think it flows much nicer. It does the exact same stuff, but it's much less clunky. Illustrator can feel a little clunky. So go ahead and make some pen tool shape. And same thing, fill it in with a new color. Change the border color, just so that we're kind of playing around, and change that border size. So you'll have 3 different shapes, one with the pen tool, one with the circle tool, and one with some other random shape. Just like Adobe Illustrator as well, we've also got our text tool. It works exactly the same way. I can go ahead and click and just start typing stuff out, just like that, nice and easy. I can also go ahead and click and drag out a text box and typey McType all the live long day. So exactly like in Photoshop, exactly like in Illustrator, all that works the same. If I want to go ahead and change my font, I just select it, exactly like Illustrator. And you'll see there's a little window over here, or a little portal over here for my text. I can change my text font. I can change my text size. I can change my kerning. That's kind of the space between those letters, right? I can change a whole bunch of stuff, right? So go ahead, type out a couple bits of text, change the font, change the size, just get comfortable with it. Okay. Now, just like with making a website, I need to jump between different web pages in order to have an app that actually functions, right? So what we've just made is pretty hideous. But if I want to make another page here, I've got this little icon underneath my T. That's going to let me go ahead and make another page. Now, I can do a couple things. I can freeform and draw it. If I wanted to go from kind of an iPhone screen to something much, much larger, I could do that. I can just click one time, just click, and I will get the exact same template as before. Or I also have all of these little pre-made templates over here on the side, Google and Microsoft and Apple and all that. For the sake of argument, just click one time so that you have 2 pages that are both iPhone X. That will add on a new artboard for us. So you should have 2 artboards. Once you've done that, go ahead and again put, let's do 2 or 3 shapes on this guy. Whatever you want, just 2 or 3 shapes, and change their color. Make them align, make them really nice looking. Throw a little bit of text on there somewhere. And then make at least one pen tool shape. Any way you want to. So when everything's said and done, you've got two separate artboards, or two separate canvases, or two separate web pages, however you want to think about them. They are both pretty hideous. I mean, these are not apps that you would want to use. We'll work on making them look pretty here in a second. But we've gone ahead, we've typed up some text, we've made some basic shapes, we've got the pen tool, and just like with Illustrator, remember that if you have access to the pen tool, you can make some pretty advanced looking designs. But again, for right now, this is more about the overall kind of wireframe. This is more about the overall concept, how the actual app is going to flow from one page to another. So, what we're going to do is we're going to take this incredibly disgusting, gross-looking application that we've made. We're going to jump up here at the top. You'll see there's the word design and the word prototype. Go ahead and jump into the prototype menu. So we've already done the design process. We've added our shapes. We've added our text. Now we're going to jump into the prototyping. So what happens if on my app, on this very first page, if you click on the blue triangle, it will take you to the second page. So go ahead and select one of your shapes on the first page, whichever one you want to, it doesn't matter. I'm going to say this blue triangle here. When you select it, you'll see you get this little blue arrow off on the right-hand side. Grab that, drag it, and just drag it right onto your web page, just like so. So, I'll do it again. All I did, I switched to prototype mode. I clicked on any object that I wanted to, anything that I want. Grab the little blue arrow on the right-hand side, click, hold, drag it over to your second web page. Okay? Then we're going to do the same thing vice versa. So, on your second web page, on your second window here, go ahead and find a different object. So maybe for me it's the word welcome. I'm going to drag it back to my first web page. So now my prototype is basically telling me when I click on the green circle, it takes me here. When I click on the word welcome, it takes me back. Cool? Once you've done that, up in the top right-hand corner, you'll see there's a little tiny triangle. That's our play icon. Go ahead and click on that. And this is giving you your breakdown. This is a live document preview, but I can click and it will take me. I can click and it will take me back. Right? Cool? Now, something that's nice is this. Let's say, for example, that I wanted to record my session. I want to make a mock-up, kind of walk you through the entire application. I can actually record this whole session, just what's happening inside this window, up here at the top. I can record this and then go through and kind of say, oh, well, if I come over here, I can click on this. Oh, I can come over here and click on that. Oh, right? So it's kind of neat. It gives you this ability to record, to make these documents. So go ahead, record yourself real quick. Record something. When you're done, just save it to the desktop. Now, what's nice too, just as an aside, you can always change the way that your links, whenever they move you from one page to another, you can always change how they actually function. So I can change the actual animation from one to another. I can change how that is going to translate. I can figure out, okay, do I have to click and drag it across? Can I just tap on it, right? Is it a voice command? So you have a lot of, pretty much every app you've ever used, you have the ability to adjust all of those little, little elements. When you're all said and done, you've gone ahead and made a recording of your app. So it's kind of showing us how we're going to navigate around this website, right? Or excuse me, around this app, right? Now, is this a good app? Not so much. I don't think you're going to win anybody over with this sales pitch, right? But what's really cool is the fact that with these very, very simple tools, you yourself can make a mock-up, can make a wireframe breakdown of an application, right? You can show that video to anyone in the world and say, hey, this is my idea for an app. I've already done the legwork. I know what it should look like. I know the design. I know the user interface. I know the user experience. It's going to flow like this. It's going to do this. Now let's get to coding, right? Now let's actually make the app, right? This becomes your sales pitch, right? Do you guys have any major questions or issues? Okay. All right, so that being said, we're going to go ahead and pause this.